Well, hello there, my fellow rushers. How are you doing today? King Rex here. Today we're gonna be starting off a nice little mini-series where I'm gonna be showing you my top 5 personal picks from every Kingdom Rush game that should be added in Legends of Kingdom Rush as party members. So yeah, we're gonna be doing that, starting off from the original Kingdom Rush. But before we get into it, as you saw in the title of the video, there's a giveaway. And you probably think what this giveaway is and how to enter it. Well, allow me to explain. So I've been given three Steam codes for Legends of Kingdom Rush by one of the employees of Ironhide, which I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Ironhide. And I'm gonna be giving them to 3 lucky winners. Now, how are you gonna participate into this competition? Well, first of all, you have to add me on Discord. If you know my Discord, or in this case, if you don't know my Discord, well, I leave it in the description of every video, so it's pretty easy to find me there. And what you need to do? Well, I want you to make a hero design for Legends of Kingdom Rush. It's gonna be from any Kingdom Rush game. Unfortunately, Iron Race is not gonna count because it's not technically Kingdom Rush based game. It's a little own thing. And I want the design to be beautiful. I want something unique. I want a satisfying story. I want unique abilities. I want something that makes them stand out from the bunch. And it can be a companion or a legend. It's up to you to choose. And yeah, that's pretty much it. After 2 weeks, I'm gonna check them out, and the top 3 hero designs that stand out to be the most are gonna be the winners. And those winners are gonna receive 1 code for Legends of Kingdom Rush on Steam. So if you have a passion for writing hero designs, or making hero designs in this case, and if you want to play Legends of Kingdom Rush on Steam, then here's your chance. You better start working. You have some time, so I hope for 2 weeks that you can make a beautiful hero design that I'm gonna appreciate. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the top 5 party members that should be added in Legends of Kingdom Rush from the original Kingdom Rush. Starting off with number 1, Baldwin the Farslayer. I mean, come on, we need to have Baldwin up in here. He was terrible. He was classified by Voodoo as the worst hero of all Kingdom Rush. So we need to bring justice to Baldwin. We need to make him good. We need to make him great again. So let's include him into Legends of Kingdom Rush and make him pretty strong. Now keep in mind that the 5 hero designs that I'm about to show you are not fully fleshed out. As you can see, there's no lore, there's no end paragraph, there's not even voice lines. It's just the stats and the abilities. And the traits, in this case. That's pretty much it. And it's probably a good thing, because if I went through the effort of making lore and paragraphs and all, this video will probably be at least 5 times as long as it is right now, so in a way that's a good thing. And the other reason why I didn't really make them completed them fully is because I made all of them in one night, so yay. Anyway, let's jump into his stats. Let's just get right to level 3. I know that most of you don't care about the statistics of a fan-made hero at level 1 or 2 or anywhere. You just care about their maximum stats. So here it is. He has 3 HP. Sorry, I can't speak today. At level 3 he has 6 HP, 3 armor, 4 physical damage, and movement of 3 hexes. You may think that those stats are horrible. Like, that's awful. That's like companion levels of awfulness. But don't you worry, there's gonna be better. It gets better. Just wait until we get to his traits. So first of all, let's read through the notes. He doesn't have any armor regeneration, so if you lose the armor, it's gone forever. It's gonna for the entire combat encounter. If you lose the armor, it's gone for the rest of the combat encounter. And he has a range of 4, 5, and then 6. It's based on his level, so at level 1 he has 4 range, at level 2 5, and then at level 3 obviously he has 6 range. So he does have a lot of effective range with 3 movement speeds. In total he has effective range of 9, so he can snipe enemies from really far away. So let's take a look at his traits. Lock and load. If you know anything about Legends of Kingdom Rush, you know that this is very good, because he is gonna be a craftsman, which is something that I forgot to list in the hero designs, what class they're going to be. Baldwin is gonna be a craftsman. And the reason why I make them a craftsman is pretty simple. The craftsman class is pretty barren. You only have the bombardier and the zapper as your options. So having a legend that's also a craftsman is gonna be very nice, in my opinion. His second trait is called Big Mama Gertrude. I'm not sure why I came up with that name, but hey, here it is. So here's the description. Being a master craftsman, his weapon shoots 3 times, but takes time to reload. So he deals his base damage 3 times. And at level 1 he deals 6 damage, at level 2 he deals 9 damage, and at level 3 he deals 12 damage. So you can tell that his basic attack is very, very strong. By far the strongest in the game in terms of like single target DPS. But again, it takes time to reload, which I'm gonna explain in a minute. Which in this case, his ability is at level 1. Blast Off, 2 turns cooldown, and that's his basic attack. So even though it's very strong, it takes time to recharge, so you can only use your basic attack once every other round. And it also has an epic effect, which applies knockback to weakened targets, because why not? His second skill is Mind Layer. It has 1 turn cooldown and it's gonna be a normal action. Here's the description. Lays down a mine, range of 3 hexes. Any enemies who step on it will trigger it, making the mine explode, dealing 4, 5, and then 6 physical damage to the main target, as well as any enemies adjacent to it. And here's the epic effect. Deals plus 2 damage against weakened targets. It's pretty nice. It's kind of like the Brambles from Bravebark or the Brambles from the Ranger, but you can summon only one of them at a time. But on the good side, this ability has 1 turn cooldown, so you can use it pretty much every turn. Every turn you can just lay down a mine in a range of 3 hexes, and if any enemy steps on it, he takes some damage. Alright, now let's move on to his abilities level 2. APB. 3 turns cooldown, full action. Here's the description. Reloads his weapon with enhanced bullets, allowing them to pierce through armor. So they're basically armor-piercing bullets. And yeah, it's pretty simple, as you can see here in the note. The ability is like an empowered basic attack, so it deals the same damage as Blast Off and it has the same functionality. It also scales with his level, and that's about it. So yeah. So at level 2 it deals 9 true damage, and at level 3 it deals 12 true damage. So it's pretty busted. But it has 3 turns cooldown and it's a full action, so you gotta be careful when you use it. Now, I'm not sure what happened here, but I guess the document screwed up, but yeah, this is his second ability at level 2, Molotov Cocktail Toss. 2 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Baldwin throws a Molotov at an enemy, range of 4 hexes, dealing 3 and then 4 magic damage to the enemy, while also setting him on fire for 1 turn alongside any enemies adjacent to the main target. And the epic effect is basically it doubles the burn duration against immobilized enemies. So it deals 3 or 4 magic damage, depending on his level, to the main target, and he sets it on fire alongside any other enemies that are adjacent to it. But the adjacent enemies don't take this magic damage, they just get set on fire. So yeah, it's a nice little AoE ability that you can use. Get away from me. 2 turns cooldown, normal action. Here's what it does. Baldwin pulls out a small grenade and tosses it at an enemy, melee range only. The enemy gets irritated by the smoke, causing him to run backwards on his next turn. It's a pretty nice ability to have in my opinion, because even though Baldwin is meant to be a sniper, sometimes an enemy may or may not be able to get too close to you and you may not be able to get away from him or kill him in time. So what you can do is you can walk up to him, toss a small grenade into his face, and then he's gonna run away from you, which is gonna give you more time to reposition. And in my opinion, that's a pretty nice ability to have around. Now here are his abilities at level 3. The first one is Star Bomb. Get it? Like his ability in the original Kingdom Rush. Even though it was kind of useless in the original Kingdom Rush, here it's much better here. See, you can see what it does right here. Baldwin throws a bomb full of tar on the map, range of 6. It should be range of 6 hexes, I'm not sure why I didn't add that. Upon landing the bomb explodes, covering any enemies caught in the area with tar. Enemies who are affected by it get their movement reduced by 1 hex for 2 turns. So it's a pretty nice ability to have, especially if you use it early on, because that way you can make enemies the process for the enemies reaching you much harder, because you're gonna reduce their movement by 1 hex. So if it's an enemy that has 3 movements, now he's gonna have only 2 for a couple of turns, which can be nice. I think that will be a pretty unique ability. My NATO. 2 turns cooldown, and it's gonna be a free action, so you can use it and then move afterwards and use other abilities. Here's what it does. Spins in place while unleashing 5 mines randomly within a 2 hex area. So the 2 hex area means that 2 hexes away from him. So any hex that's 2 hexes away from him can have a chance for a mine to be laid in. Each mine deals 5 to 6 physical, 5 and then 6 physical damage, and sets the unit it hits on fire for 1 turn. So it's basically like a little bit better mine. Well, not really, it has the same damage as the mine layer, but it's basically like the mine layer ability times 5 as a free action, which can be pretty strong in my opinion. But not as strong as his last ability, Watch Him Burn. 6 turns cooldown and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Baldwin pulls out a gigantic bomb and sets it off. Upon detonating, the bomb deals 3 true damage to every enemy on the screen and sets them on fire for 2 turns. Is it busted? Yes. Is it balanced? Kind of. It has 6 turns cooldown and it's a full action, and he doesn't have any way to reduce the cooldown of it, so you can pretty much use it once per combat encounter, but that'll be pretty dope. Dealing 3 true damage across the screen while setting everyone on fire. That'll be a very dope ability in my opinion. And yeah, that's pretty much Baldwin. I think he will be much better in Legends of Kingdom Rush, and if Ironhide ever decides to include him, well, here's a nice little script that you can use. Moving on to number 2, Kartus, the Rogue Assassin. Now, this guy is gonna be a companion, not a legend, so that's a little bit different. And if you couldn't tell, and if you don't know from which faction he is, he's from the Bandit faction, because, in my opinion, I feel like the Bandits have been very underrated. I don't think a lot of people talk about the Bandit faction from the original Kingdom Rush enough, so I decided to make a hero on them, based on them. I mean, yeah, you can say that there was a bonus tower in Vengeance, but yeah, I feel like that bonus tower didn't do the Bandits enough justice. So here are his stats at level 3. He has 8 HP, 3 armor, 7 physical damage, and movement speed of 3. And he is a melee unit, obviously. His armor regeneration is 0 at level 1, at level 2, and 2. Once he hits level 3, he gains armor regeneration of 1, so once you get to level 3, you get a little bit of armor regeneration. It's not a lot, but it's something. Because, you know, he's meant to be a marksman. That's my idea. Kind of like Rexon and the Sylvan Elf. He's gonna be a melee assassin type of. He's gonna be like an assassin, basically, if you couldn't tell from his title. So here are his traits. His first trait is Dodge, which is gonna have a 30% chance to dodge any melee attacks, and then Keen Focus. Here are his abilities at level 1. Shiv, that's his basic attack. It has no epic effect, it's just his basic attack. Bounty Hunter, 3 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Puts a bounty on an enemy, range of 5. If the target is killed within the next 2 turns, and at the end of the combat encounter, the player gains 10, 20, and then 30 crowns. For those who don't know, crowns are basically the currency in-game, the in-game currency, which is pretty dope. At level 1 you get only 10, but once you get them up to level 2 and 3, you get an additional 10 crowns. It will be pretty nice and unique mechanic where you have to kill specific enemies just so you can get bonus gold. And that way you can get more stuff from the shops, you can get an additional upgrade from a blacksmith, stuff like that. It can be pretty nice. And I think it will also make the achievement I have the power way easier to get because of this ability. Moving on to his abilities at level 2. Crippling Strike. 2 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Strikes an enemy in melee range, applies bleeding for 1 turn and deals 4 and then 6 true damage. And here's the epic effect. Doubles the bleed duration against weakened enemies. So if an enemy is already weakened, he's gonna bleed for 2 turns. Which is pretty dope. And his next ability is much better though. Shadow Artist. 3 turns cooldown and it's a free action. Here's what it does. Kartus enters the focus state, doubling his dodge chance for 2 turns. So instead of 30% chance, you have 60% chance to dodge any melee attacks, and the epic effect makes it even better. If he's below half health upon activating this ability, he gets the ability to dodge ranged attacks too. So even if he's below half health, so if he has like only 4 HP or less, this ability is gonna give him the option to just, you know, dodge ranged attacks as well, which can be pretty nice. And now here are his abilities at level 3. Death Locust, I mean. 3 turns cooldown and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Kartus unleashes a storm of blades, striking any enemy in an area up to 2 hexes away from him, and deals 5 magic damage to all enemies struck. And the epic effect is, applies poison for 2 turns against immobilized targets. It's his only real AoE ability, so if you're lacking AoE on your team, this ability can be pretty useful. But it's not as good as his last ability, Unseen Predator. 4 turns cooldown and it's gonna be a normal action. Here's what it does. Kartus becomes untargetable for 2 turns, allowing himself to strike enemies while being covered by the shadows. Basically, he becomes invisible and no enemies can attack him. But I should have added it as a note. AoE splash damage can still affect him even if he is invisible, so keep that in mind. But for 2 turns, you basically cannot, nobody can target you. You can just stay right next to a high tier enemy, keep on hitting him without him knowing that you're there at all. It can be pretty cool. It'll be a very unique ability. I'm not sure why I probably should have made it into a full action, but normal action it is. And yeah, I think he will be pretty cool to add in Legends of Kingdom Rush. But not as cool as our number 3. Oni, the Demon Slayer. Now, you're probably thinking, why Oni from all people? Honestly, I don't know. I just felt like Oni was pretty cool, and I wanted to add him, and he's here now. He's gonna be a legend, obviously, and he's gonna be just a melee unit. Here are his stats at level 3. 12 HP, 6 armor, 7 mixed damage, which we're gonna talk about in a minute, and movement speed of 2. So he can move 2 hexes in any direction. Here's the notes that I was talking about. He has armor regeneration of 1, 2, and then 2. So at level 1 he only regenerates 1 armor, and at level 2 and 3 he regenerates 2 armor per turn. His basic attack is similar to Rexon. He deals 3 physical damage and 1 magic damage at level 1, 4 physical damage and then 2 magic damage at level 2, and 4 physical damage and 3 magic damage at level 3. So yeah, that's how his basic attack works. Kinda like Rexon, basically. You know how Rexon has double attack? Well, Oni has the same thing, but instead of dealing true damage, he deals magic damage. Here we go with his traits. Fortify. You know, pretty simple. And then we have Blast-Proof Armor. Here's the description. Oni is immune to explosions from demon enemies. The only reason why I added it is because that was one of his main passives in the original Kingdom Rush, where he's immune to demon explosions. So it will be cool to have around. How useful it will be? I don't know, but it's there if you ever need it. Now here are his abilities at level 1. Vanishing Strike, his basic attack. It doesn't have any epic effect, it's just his basic attack. Burning Blade, 2 turns cooldown, and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Sets his katanas on fire, dealing 3, 5, and then 6 magic damage to his target, melee range. So yeah, you can hit enemies in melee. Knocks it back by 1 hex, and sets it on fire for 2 turns. Just, you know, a little bit more different basic attack. Here are his abilities at level 2 though. Cleanse, 2 turns cooldown, and it's a free action. Oni meditates, removing burning, poison, and bleeding from himself. And the epic effect is that he gets plus 2 armor if his armor is half or less. So it can be pretty useful ability. You know, if you ever run out of armor, or you're you're burning or being poisoned, you can just cleanse yourself from that, and then attack right after. Here is his next ability though. Transferring Strike. 3 turns cooldown, and it's gonna be a full action. Here's what it does. Oni strikes his target in melee range only, deals 4 and then 5 true damage to it, and the enemies adjacent to the main target, and he gains half of their total armor. And the epic effect is that he completely steals the armor of weakened enemies. So that's a pretty nice way to prepare yourself for a pretty hard attack coming up. So if you're surrounded by enemies, you can just use this ability, steal their armor, and just make yourself tankier in order to absorb more damage. It can be pretty useful in situations like that. Now moving on to his last ability at level 2. Mark of the Samurai. 3 turns cooldown, and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Targets an enemy, range of 3 hexes, and marks it as challenged. The challenged target gets their damage and movement reduced by 1, while Oni gets plus 1 damage against it for 2 turns, or until the target gets killed. So yeah, it's a pretty nice way to... It's like a little boost. It's a debuff to the enemy, and it's also a little boost for Oni. I think it will be pretty cool. And now here are his abilities at level 3 though. They are pretty busted, I'm not gonna lie. Sword Torment. 3 turns cooldown, and it's a full action. Stabs his katana in the ground, causing them to erect in a 1 hex area, range of 4 hexes. Enemies caught in it take 5 true damage, and the epic effect is, I'm not sure where the other F went, deals bonus 3 damage against immobilized enemies. So you can do a total of 8 true damage to immobilized enemy, which is pretty darn good. Now moving on to his next ability though. This is the busted one. Or the second most busted one, I think. Spirit Unbound. 4 turns cooldown, and it's a free action. Description. Oni unleashes his soul from his cursed armor to a random adjacent hex for 2 turns. In spirit form, he gets +1 damage, immunity against any debuffs, in this case poison, burning, bleeding, and sleep, and +1 movement. His body becomes immune to any damage while he is in his spirit form. After the duration is over, he returns to his body, and the epic effect is that he fully restores his HP if he gets at least 3 kills in spirit form. Damn. Sorry, I coughed a little bit. So yeah, this ability seems pretty busted, isn't it? I mean, yeah, it's meant to be. But the main thing is that the only reason why I added it is because of Oni's nature. For those of you who don't know, Oni is a spirit in the Japanese folklore. I don't remember a lot about them, but as far as I remember, I think they're supposed to steal souls from people who've been evil in their life, and they eat them to what I assume is the Japanese version of hell. So yeah, that's why I made this ability, because he's technically a spirit, and the armor is like a vessel for his spirit. So yeah, that would be cool. And now, last but not the least, Death Strike. 3 turns cooldown, and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Oni combines his katanas into one and attempts to smite an enemy in melee range. The ability has a 70% chance to deal 6 true damage and 30% chance to insta-kill the enemy. And the ability cannot be used on bosses, because obviously if you insta-kill a boss, then that's pretty OP. And yeah, it's a very, very cool ability. I mean, 6 true damage is still a decent amount, but you can also insta-kill an enemy, so if you have like an abomination in front of you, you can try to insta-kill it. If you don't, well, at least you're gonna chunk him. So yeah, I think Oni will be pretty fun to include in Legends of Kingdom Rush. Maybe balance him up a little bit more, but this is a prototype. It's not meant to be like fully fleshed out hero design. Now moving on at number 4. Solix. Get it? Kinda like Pollux. The exiled one. So he's gonna be a companion, and he is he's based on the trolls, because for the longest time a lot of people have been asking for a troll-based hero, which we never got. Spoiler alert. I think he should have appeared in Vengeance, but he never did. I mean, we have Jigo, but Jigo is not really a troll. He's more of a snow abomination, so snow abomination monster type. So he doesn't really classify as a troll. So I think a troll-based companion will be pretty nice. And before you say, but the trolls have been added as an enemy fashion in Legends of Kingdom Rush, well, the orcs are also enemies, but in this case, why the Orc Cleaver exists, why the Witch Doctor exists, huh? Anyway, let's get into his stats at level 3. 12 HP, 4 armor, his damage is physical and he deals between 4 to 7, with movement speed of 3. He gets armor regeneration of 1 upon reaching level 2, and it's the same for level 3. So at level 1, because he has no armor, obviously he has no armor regen, and at level 2 and 3 he can regenerate 1 armor at the beginning of his turn. He also has Fortify and Regeneration. The thing is that his regeneration increases by 1 based on his level, so at level 1 you have 1 regeneration, at level 2 you have 2 regeneration, and at level 3 you have 3 regeneration. That's something that I wish the Sasquatch had. His regeneration I wish they scaled based on his level, and that's what I'm kind of trying to make here. A regeneration that's based on your level, and I think that would be pretty cool, because you could pretty much heal a quarter of your health at the beginning of your turn, which is gonna be pretty darn good. Now here are his abilities at level 1. Slash. It's his basic attack, and the epic effect is that it applies bleeding to immobilized targets for 2 turns. It's kind of alright, nothing too special. Then his next ability is Spirit Throw. 2 turns cooldown, and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Throws his spear at an enemy, range of 4, deals 3, 4, and then 6 physical damage. And the epic effect is that it applies knockback to weakened targets. So it's kind of like his ranged attack, because when he's in the early game, as you can see, his stats are pretty bad. 2 to 4 damage, then 3 to 5. You can tell that he's not really good in the early game. Late game is when he gets pretty solid stats. So this ability is kind of meant to be, a little bit of help. It's nice, helpful ability to have around. Moving on to his abilities level 2. Double Strike. 3 turns cooldown, and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Strikes an enemy in melee range with 2 separate attacks, dealing 4 to then 6 damage, followed up by a second attack that deals 2 and then 3 physical damage. So in total you can do 6 and then 9 physical damage to a single target. And the epic effect is that it deals true damage against immobilized targets, so you can definitely delete an enemy like that. And his next ability is Troll Rush. It has 3 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Solix charges towards an enemy up to 3 hexes away, dealing 4 and then 5 physical damage, while pushing away all enemies by 1 hex in any direction that were caught in it. So kinda like the Battering Ram ability, basically. You just, it's a pretty nice gap closer, while also dealing a little bit of damage and pushing away enemies. It can be pretty cool, you know, especially if you're like rooted, you can just dash away like that. You can use it for engage or disengage. Now, here are his abilities at level 3. Ice Tipped Spear. 2 turns cooldown and it's a free action. Here's what it does. Spins in place, dealing 3 magic damage to any adjacent enemies. Afterwards, they become frozen for 1 turn. So it's kind of like his another get out of jail free card. If you're being surrounded by enemies and you don't have enough time to regenerate, or you just don't have enough HP to tank, you can just freeze them all and just run away, and give yourself some time to regenerate. But why would you need that when you have the last ability? Hakraj Inspiration. 3 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Driven by the glory of carnage, Solix becomes enraged, getting +1 bonus damage and doubling his regeneration for 2 turns. So yeah, if you couldn't tell that this is busted, I don't know what to tell you. For 2 turns, you regenerate 6 HP. That's half of your health. So for 2 turns, you become a very, very solid tank who can absorb a lot of damage and heal a lot of damage back up. So yeah, it's pretty good. He's kind of like a combination of the Barbarian and the Sasquatch in a way. I wonder if the Barbarian is going to be better than Solix. Probably yes, but who knows. It'll be pretty cool to compare both of them. But anyway, now we're moving on to our last pick. And the last pick is especially made for Vuduk. Ingwar, the Northerner leader. Yep, Ingwar is here. So Vuduk, if you're watching this, this is in your honor. Why have I added Ingwar? Well, 1, because Vuduk likes this hero, and 2, because I think he will be very cool to have. He was very unique in the original Kingdom Rush, and we haven't really seen any ability like his in a long time, so yeah, it will be cool to see him here. So yeah, here's how his stats are gonna look like at level 3. He will have 12 HP, 5 armor, 8 physical damage, and he's gonna have movement speed of 3. So you can tell that he's pretty strong. But here's his armor regeneration. It starts off at 1, then 2, and then ends at 3. So at level 1 you regenerate 1 armor, at level 2 you regenerate 2 armor, and at level 3 you obviously regenerate 3 armor. And you know, it's pretty darn alright. Now, his traits are what makes them really darn cool. Fortify, you know, standard melee trait. Pretty much every melee unit has it. And then there's Immobile as a Mountain, which is basically makes him immune to knockback, because I feel like it will be cool to have a champion who can be immune to knockback, because knockback sometimes can screw you over. So being immune to it can be pretty nice. And the next one is Powered by Revenge. Basically, he's immune to sleep status, so anyone who tries to put you down to sleep, like the Asherman Enchantress, can be pretty solid. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of enemies that can put you to sleep, but against the very few who can, it's gonna be useless against Ingvar. But now let's talk about his abilities. Starting off with his abilities at level 1. Chop. Bruh. Oh, I was sleepy, I guess. I just named the basic attack Chop. XD. So yeah, that's his basic attack. No epic effect, unfortunately. His next ability is Vicious Strike. It has 3 turns cooldown and it's gonna be a normal action. Here's what it does. Strikes his target in melee range, dealing 6, 8, and then 10 physical damage. Knocks it back by 2 hexes and deals half the damage to 2 other enemies adjacent to the main target. Note, the knockback is applied only to the main target. And the epic effect is that it applies bleeding to immobilized targets. It's a pretty nice ability. It's basically like an empowered basic attack that can also hit that also deals splash damage. And you can knock back the enemy by 2 hexes, which is pretty nice. Especially if the enemy is like on a burning tile, you can knock them back by 2 hexes, push them into 2 other burning tiles. It's pretty good. It'll be a pretty nice combo. Moving on to his abilities at level 2. Storm of Axes. 3 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Ingvar swings his axe around, dealing 4 and then 7 physical damage to any adjacent enemies. And the epic effect is that it applies knockback against weakened targets. So it's basically like the Barbarian's Whirlwind ability, kind of, but a little bit different. I don't know, I guess I was very sleepy when I was making Ingvar, because this ability is not really that unique, but you know, it's there. It's trying to keep it realistic up in here, kind of. Moving on to his second ability, Shudder. It has 2 turns cooldown and it's normal action. Here's what it does. Strikes an enemy in melee range, knocks it back by 1 hex, and stuns it. And the epic effect is that it deals 4 and then 6 physical damage against weakened targets. So if an enemy is weakened, you also do a little bit of extra damage. It would be pretty nice if you have a tough enemy that you're not sure if you can tank, so you can just push him away and stun him. His last ability at level 2 is Ancestor's Call. It has 3 turns cooldown and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Summons an ancient predecessor of his kin with in a range of 3 hexes to come and aid him in battle for 2 turns. So he lasts for 2 turns, pretty much. And here are the stats for the ancient predecessor. At level 1, or in this case at level 2, because at level 2 is when you unlock this skill. He has 5 HP, 2 armor, he deals between 3 to 5 physical damage, and he has 2 movement speed. And once Ingwar gets to level 3, the Ancestor gets 6 HP, 3 armor, 4 to 6 physical damage, and his movement speed remains unchanged. The only negative about him is that he has no armor regeneration, so if he loses his armor, it's gone forever. So yeah, it's gonna be nice. It's a nice little unit that can help you out to stall out an enemy, or help you out to do some chip damage to other enemies, stuff like that. It can be pretty nice. And now moving on to his most unique skills. Starting off with his abilities at level 3. Axe Throw. 2 turns cooldown, normal action. Here's what it does. Flings his weapon at an enemy, range of 5 hexes, dealing 4 physical damage to it. So it's a pretty weak, but it's kind of like his it's like one of his only ranged abilities, and it has a pretty long range. So you can use that if you need to. Oh my god, Discord, shut up, bruh. Oh my god. Okay, guys, wait a minute. Okay, we're back. I just had to turn on the Do Not Disturb mode on. Sorry, I keep forgetting that. Like, recently I've been forgetting to turn off my Discord when I'm recording. I don't know if it's because I'm getting tired or what, but I just do. Anyway, moving on to his second ability, which is pretty cool. Wyvern Strike. 3 turns cooldown, and it's gonna be a full action. Here's what it does. Calls upon the Wyvern to strike the enemies from above, range of 4 hexes. The Wyvern fires his Icy Breath at an enemy and all adjacent enemies to it. So basically, it's an AoE attack. His attack deals 3 true damage and freezes all enemies caught in the zone for 2 turns. After that, the Wyvern flies away. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty nice ability to have around. I just can imagine a big old Wyvern coming down and freezing like 4 enemies. That would be pretty dope. Kind of like a different version of the Frost Lance. And lastly, here's his most unique ability, Bear Form. 5 turns cooldown, and it's gonna be a normal action. Here's what it does. Ingwar unleashes his Bear Form to wreak havoc upon his enemies for 3 turns. While in it, he gains damage reduction of 1 against all forms of damage, while also unlocking new skills based on the ones the player had selected. So that's pretty much... This part applies only for his level 2, for his level 2 skills. At level 1, he's still gonna have the same skills regardless of everything. Slice and Dice. It's his basic attack split into 2 separate attacks. I know that in the bear form he actually attacks 3 times in the original Kingdom Rush, but it's gonna be pretty difficult to make it balanced, because that way he needs to have like what? He needs to have like 9 physical damage at level 3, or maybe even 12, which, you know, is gonna be very, very unbalanced. I know that Baldwin has 12, he can do all the way up to 12 physical damage, but at least his attack takes time to recharge. This attack, meanwhile, doesn't, so hence why I decided to split it into 2 instead of 3. Moving on to his second skill, Swipe. 2 turns cooldown, it's gonna be a normal action. Here's what it does. Strikes an enemy in melee range and applies bleeding. The epic effect is that it deals 5 additional physical damage against immobilized targets. So it's a pretty nice little affliction that you can do every couple turns. Now his abilities at level 2 are pretty OP. Intimidating Roar. It has 2 turns cooldown and it's a normal action. Here's what it does. Unleashes a mighty roar that affects any enemies and allies within an area of 2 hexes. For 2 turns, all enemies in this area get their damage reduced by 1, while allies gain +1 damage. So it's a debuff and a buff at the same time. I think it will be pretty cool, especially if you combine it with like the Hold the Line ability. That would be pretty dope. Moving on to Lethal Bite. 3 turns cooldown and it's a full action. Here's what it does. Attacks an enemy adjacent to him. The selected target will get bitten. The bite deals 4 true damage. Heals Ingwar by the same amount of damage dealt, and applies bleeding to the enemy. So yeah, it's a pretty nice little ability that you can use to heal yourself back up. Especially if you have tanked attack from a very high tier enemy. but it's not anywhere near as good as his last ability, which you can unlock if you get, let me just see what it was called, the Ancestor Call. It is, drumroll please, Savagery. Lol, get Savagery because he's a bear. But here's what it does. Ingwar lunges at an enemy within range of 2 hexes, brutally mauling him. The enemy takes 7 true damage, but the epic effect is that it instantly kills the target if it is affected by bleeding. I should have put a note there that it doesn't work on bosses, but I think you should have figured it out on your own. I mean, come on. Being able to insta-kill bosses is very, very unbalanced, so yeah. Honestly, I think Ingwar is the... I left Ingwar for last because he is the most unique. Just because of the bear form ability alone. Imagine transforming into something, into a different unit with different skills for a little while. You're gonna be stronger, but temporarily. I think it will be very OP to have something like this. Imagine if there was a hero in Legends of Kingdom Rush that could do that. That would be very, very good, and I think a lot of people will like this idea. So Ironhide, if you're watching this, please include Ingvar into the game. I would love to see him. And yeah, that's pretty much all the hero designs, guys. So, with that out of the way, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I appreciate you for sticking around to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future. And while you're at it, drop a like on the video. It means a lot to me. And I will see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy, over and out.